The tragic murder of Layla Cummings, was it revenge? The views and opinions expressed in this video are those of the creator and do not necessarily reflect the official legal arguments or position of information online. To the creator's knowledge, the term revenge is not used. This is the creator's interpretation and opinion based on the information reviewed online. Oklahoma's longest-serving death row inmate Richard Rojem executed for 1984 brutal murder of 7-year-old stepdaughter. 66-year-old Richard Norman Rojem Jr. was executed at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester via lethal injection on Thursday, June 27, 2024. Rojem Jr., an admitted psychopath, has been on death row for almost 40 years for the revenge killing of Layla Dawn Marie Cummings. When asked if he had any final words, Rojem, who was strapped to a gurney and had an IV in his tattooed left arm, responded, "I don't. I've said my goodbyes." The execution started at 10:03 a.m. Rojem looked at the witness room, which included his victim's mother, before his death. His time of death was 10:16 a.m. Rojem was convicted of the 1984 kidnapping, rape, torture, and murder of his former stepdaughter, Layla. Prosecutors said that Rojem, who had previously been found guilty of raping 2 teenage girls in Michigan, had been enraged with Layla for accusing him of molesting her. As a consequence, he was sent back to jail for breaking his parole. Following Layla's molestation charges against him, her mother, who was unaware of his previous sexual assault charges, filed for divorce from him. Online, social media is buzzing with various questions and accusations, and the number one question or accusation is, how could she not have known about his criminal history? Keep in mind that the internet as we know it today didn't exist in the 1980s. Search engines, like Bing and Google, were non-existent. So there was no access to online court or criminal records back then. And unlike today, in the 1980s, people were less suspicious and more trusting until that trust was broken. Many held to the belief that a man's word was his bond. But as we've seen, appearances can be deceiving. Remember the famous line from the movie Shawshank Redemption? "Everybody's innocent in here." Don't you know that? According to the AG office's parole packet, Cummings had filed a restraining order against Rojem in March 1984, 4 months before Layla's murder. It also says that, at that time, Rojem's feelings towards the children were not happy. He and Mindy Cummings had been divorced for about 2 months at the time of the murder. He had been seeking reconciliation, but, like any reasonable-minded parent, she turned down his efforts. This rejection angered him. Prosecutors said the girl was abducted late July 6 or early July 7 in 1984 from an Elk City apartment while her mother was at her second job at a McDonald's restaurant. A motel night clerk, who had been asked to watch the small apartment across the road, discovered Layla was missing when he went over to see why an outdoor light had been turned off. On the morning of July 7, a farmer discovered her mutilated body in a plowed field near Burns Flat. According to the documents, the girl had stab wounds and was dressed in a rose-colored nightgown. Some reports suggest it was actually her mother's nightgown. Richard Norman Rojem Jr., then 26, was living in Burns Flat. On Friday at around 4:30 p.m., he was arrested in his car by Washita County Sheriff Joe Ferrero and an OSBI agent. According to Sheriff Ferrero, Rojem offered no resistance during the arrest. A Washita County jury convicted Rojem in 1985 after just 45 minutes of deliberations. The judge sentenced him to death for Layla's murder and 1,000 years each for both the rape and kidnapping convictions. Rojem had been sentenced to death for the murder 3 separate times. His first 2 convictions were thrown out due to trial errors, but he was given the death penalty for the 3rd time by a Custer County jury in 2007. He spent decades on death row, largely due to ongoing appeals. By the time he exhausted all his appeals in 2017, executions were on hold in Oklahoma. However, lethal injections resumed in the state in 2021. On June 17, 2024, Oklahoma's Pardon and Parole Board unanimously denied clemency for Rojem, upholding his conviction of kidnapping, raping, and killing his former stepdaughter, 7-year-old Layla Cummings, in 1984. Photos of Layla Cummings were displayed as Oklahoma Attorney Richard Drummond urged the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board to reject clemency for Richard Rojem Jr. Mindy Cummings, Layla's mother, told the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board, "Everything she might have been was stolen from her one horrific night. She never got to be more than the precious 7-year-old that she was. And so she remains in our hearts, forever 7. In a shocking twist, his clemency hearing revealed that Rojem had a girlfriend. An assistant attorney general played for the parole board a recording of a recent phone conversation with a woman identified only as his paramour. The parole board played the recording as proof he indulges in inappropriate fantasies about children. On Wednesday, the day before his execution, he was served his last meal at 5:48 p.m., which included 2 small Little Caesars pizza with double cheese and double pepperoni, 8 salt packets, 8 crushed red pepper packets, Vernon's ginger ale, and 2 vanilla ice cream cups and a large styrofoam cup. Richard Rojem, 66, received a 3-drug lethal injection at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester on June 27, 2024. He had been incarcerated since 1985 and held the record as the longest-serving inmate on Oklahoma's death row. After the execution, State Attorney General Richard Drummond stated, "Justice for Layla Cummings was finally served this morning with the execution of the monster responsible for her rape and murder. Layla's family has endured unimaginable suffering for almost 40 years. My prayer is that today's action brings a sense of comfort to those who loved her." This was the state's second execution of 2024, following the execution of Michael Dwayne Smith in April. There are no more executions scheduled for this year, and moving forward they will be scheduled with 90-day intervals. In these moments, when words cannot adequately express sorrow, we offer our sincerest condolences to her family and community. Do you think Rojem killed Layla out of revenge? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Please be respectful and no swearing. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned and see you in the next video.